Commissioner Mashlin mentioned he'd be about 30 minutes late for this meeting. Okay.
We're streaming to YouTube, but we are ready when you are, Chair Lebrecht.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Calling the January 30th HP Seward Historic Preservation Commission work session to order. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Appreciate your time and consideration. We have two items to discuss today. One is the certified local government grant work for a CLG grant it is due later this month that we're going to take a look at. I'd like to discuss the possibility of some Hoban Park fencing and improvements as our proposed project. And then the number two item will be going over the Seward Local Register nomination review. I'd like to propose that actually, is there any reason we can't change the order of that and just do the nomination review first so we don't forget it somehow at the end of all of our discussions?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, let's do that. So if you'll take a look at your first inside page of the package, you'll see our City of Seward Local Historic Register application. We received one this time from Thorns Showcase Lounge. It's a very nice format, and now called the Flamingo Lounge. Thank you for the correction. And we, at the end of this, will do an actual rating of what we think of this nomination. One being a yes, two being a no, or two being a maybe, and three being a no. We'll just have to look in consideration for one of those plaques, like the ones that I brought tonight. We do have the plaques also with the names of the three folks that we've already picked. So if we can take a look at this. Mary Ann, you want to read this since I already got half of it wrong?
We got one word wrong. You keep just going on.
All right. So Thorns Showcase Lounge, also referred to now as the Flamingo Lounge, which is on 4th Avenue at 208. And it's on address is 18, the owner of the property is 1809 Jesse Lee Drive. And you can see that this building here, they put some significance on it, property associated with events that have made significant contribution to history. And we'll go through their narrative here in a minute so you can see how that applies. And then also the criteria consideration. It's a commemorative property as well too. And looking at the next page, this was done by Matthew Cope, who's the owner of the Flamingo Lounge, one of the two owners here in Seward. The way that they answer with their narrative is saying they believe that Thorns building holds historical significance in the city's cultural and social scene dating back to 1952. So it definitely, if you remember, some of you might have been here way back when we decided anything over 50 years was of historical significance. So they definitely qualify from that standpoint. Although a fire in 1971 destroyed the original interior, to this day the 1970s interior is mostly upheld. With its red padded seating, string lighting, and erstwhile decor, the interior is like a trip back in time with its dimly lit retro vibe, delightfully filled with the community's character. We recently refurbished the original bubble lettering on the building, originally installed in 1972. However, it's best known for the hundreds of Jim Beam whiskey decanters adorning the wall-to-wall showcases, which represent only part of a larger collection by Gene Thorn. His massive collection encompasses several decades worth of the specialty bottles that we, as the new owners, have organized and preserved for history. The lounge, however, is tied to another place, Gill's Lounge, which was established in 1946 or 1947 in the Palace Cafe building by Harley Hal Otto Gillifon, who was from alive 1903 to 1989. I guess it's Gilfillan, and his wife Clara, or Claire. A few years later, in 1950, Gill's Lounge relocated. I don't know if it was Gill or Jill, but I'm guessing it's Gill. Lounge relocated to 208 4th Avenue. The Gilfins operated Gill's Lounge until 1961, until it became Thorns Showcase Lounge. Thorns Lounge is listed in a guide to the notorious bars of Alaska by Doug Vandergraft. In March of 1952, Louis Eugene Gene Thorn arrived in Seward and shortly thereafter started employment as a bartender. He was professionally associated with several notorious bars, including Palace from 1904 to 17, 1933, 1985, and at 133 4th Avenue in 1962, Solly's as well from 56 to 80, at 406 Washington Street, and Gill's Lounge in 1967. In 1960, Thorn met and married a nurse who'd moved to Seward from New York in 1959, Patricia Pat Ann Clancy Thorn, who died in 2017. The Flamingo, also a historical establishment, Seward opened in February of 1953. The papers called it a beautifully appointed, completely modern establishment with coral hues and mahogany paneling. Ultra-modern is the only word to describe the new cocktail bar. Flamingo has huge upholstered chairs in flamingo red, originally established in the side street of the Liberty Theater. Patrons would not know of its existence except for the neon-lighted flamingo on the street corner. The Flamingo, over the course of its 30-year original existence, transformed to an establishment which survived by scandalous gossip and stories full of history.
Right there, I'd vote for it.
So, this is listed in Guide Notorious Bars as the bibliography, and also information vetted by Resurrection Bay Historical Society. So, we would go back then to the application format, and we, of course, agree that it's a building, but we would need to look at the significance and the criteria considerations, and then as a body, decide if we believe that it's worthy of one of those beautiful signs over there.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I'm trying to, what is a commemorative property? What's the definition of that? That's what they check, I'm just quite sure what that is.
Well, let's look at the categories here, because I didn't actually have this discussion with them about that. But the options are either owned by a religious institution or used for religious purposes. That would be like St. Peter's. Something that was removed from its original location, that would be like the Quonset huts, I would guess, or some of the Fort Raymond buildings, right?
The Sweatman house.
Sweatman, there you go. A birthplace or a grave, which is not, or a cemetery. It's not a reconstructed building. It has not been reconstructed. And it is not less than 50 years of age or achieved significance within the past 50 years. So the only thing left there is a commemorative property, which commemorates the original from the story that they described, I think.
Right, that there was an original Flamingo.
So that's how I would see that. And then they say in the applicable Seward Historic Register criteria are that either the properties associated with events that have made significant contribution, sounds like it has, properties associated with lives of persons significant in the past. I don't know from the folks that are described here if they were significant past, but I would imagine being here in the amount of time that they were significant in Seward history. Construction and architecture, older building, properties yielded or is unlikely to yield information, or is likely to yield information important in Seward prehistory. Don't really have anything on prehistory, so it looked like what they picked up was the most appropriate was associated with events that have made a significant contribution. That is how they're asking to propose. So, we need to decide as a body, there's on the next page then, I'm sorry, number 7, there's nothing on title history. If approved, may the property be placed on the walking tour? They say yes. They have already expressed interest and sent us information asking to be on the walking tour. They very much would like to be on the walking tour, which would be cool, so people can come inside and see all the bottles and the history and talk to them as well. And yeah, so that's what I've got. Any questions, thoughts, or discussion on Flamingo Thorns for consideration for a Seward Historic Register plaque?
Where did the big flamingo go from years ago that used to be?
I really wish I knew that. It's a really good question.
Ultra-modern in 1953.
No, it was still out in 53.
Was it?
Yeah.
It just says open, but it just says ultra-modern is the only word to describe the new cocktail bar. So I think that they are honoring that in Thorne's building.
What I can tell you is, to me, and you would know this better, I would know, it seems like they've preserved still a feel. I was concerned that when it got sold that it would get turned into something completely different from what it was, and that you wouldn't even be able to reference the original history
Right.
by looking at it.
And I think
So,
that Matt and Kellyanne have really done a good job keeping the feel of it. Even down to the menu, you know, Thorne's had that Black Russian. That was what they were known for, and so that you can even still get that today.
and the help.
It does feel like when you go in there, it's like walking back in time. They made a great effort to preserve the interior as best they could to
All those bottles.
maintain that look.
And that bottle collection is worth quite a bit of money, I understand. You know, the whiskey decanters. Not that I'm a whiskey drinker, but he's got a ton of them. I guess there's a bunch of them in the
Interesting.
basement.
It's
There's a
interesting.
bunch in the basement. So I think it meets the criteria.
Plus, it sounds like Gene Thorne was kind of a well-known figure in this town, had a lot of history. You didn't know any of that.
Guide to the notorious bars of Alaska?
So if we were to do a vote, is there any other discussion, first of all? I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make sure I'm reading this correctly. We're talking about, let's see, although a fire in 71 destroyed the original interior, the 70s interior is mostly held, but was this building built in 1952? I couldn't quite figure out exactly when it was built. I mean, obviously in 1941, everything
Burnt on that side of
was
the street,
destroyed, so
right.
it was after that, but
So it was
It
dating back to
sounds like-
52, but in 71, the original interior got destroyed, and it sounds like they tried to kind of recreate it. But-
it sounds like it was built in 52, which makes it over 50 years old. It also sounds like the interior is still, if it was restored or tries to look like that, that's still over 50 years old also.
I expect that building was rebuilt in 1941 after, that whole side of the street got rebuilt, I would suspect. And then there's probably been several businesses in there, but the only can trace back to
So-
1952.
It says that the lounge is tied to another place, Gill's Lounge, which was established in 46 or 47.
In the Palace Cafe,
Yeah, and then
That's
it
across the
relocated
street.
in 1950 to Gill's Lounge, which is this location.
right.
And then they operated until 1961, and in 1961, it became Thorne's Showcase Lounge. But the building itself sounds like it was built in 1950.
Right.
And even with 61, we're still within our
But
50-year
it says
window.
here Thorns was listed in this Guide to the Notorious Bars in 52, so it must have been there in 52.
Yep.
So that's probably,
But I meant Palace Cafe, the Palace building is the one where Tony's is, and the brew pub. That's the Palace building. So this started
So-
there and relocated to its current location.
And they arrived in 1952, at bartending, so.
I say, I'm good. Do we need a motion,
So
or do we do that
we
at
should,
the
we
meeting?
should, so per our listing criteria, what we came up with at a past meeting, if all of you would just note, and then we can just kind of go around the room, but it's a vote of yes to be on the register for is a 1, a maybe is a 2.
Where
and
where do
then-
we have that?
we had a picture here that they probably found on the phone of what the original interior looked like.
Oh, super cool.
Yeah, I don't have that online. Oh, yeah, look at that. Ooh,
So,
curve bar. Oh, wow, that's pretty flash.
so in this case, the lower the score, the better, since 1 is a yes. What do you think, Marianne? Yes, no, maybe?
I would say yes.
Chair LeBrecq, just a reminder, there's no actual voting to be done during the work session,
Right.
but it is on the regular agenda for the meeting under
So
new
we would need to
business.
vote on it then, and just note right now in our packets what we think?
So now would be more of just an informal discussion.
Discussion, right.
Okay, well, there's your informal discussion, so when we get to the actual meeting, we can make
We
the
can
vote.
make a motion.
Okay.
Do we need a motion, the whole shebang?
Sure, when we
Okay,
get there.
we'll make a motion.
Can we discuss
where
what
is
that
that
motion would
from?
look like so it can be a little smoother?
Yeah, of course. Where
What-
is this criteria sheet that you're using? Do we have a copy?
It's on here, it's number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, should be on inside the work packet. As far as the 1, 2, 3, that was something we decided in a previous session, it is not listed on here. Something we did when we did a year ago when we did the last one.
Yeah, that criteria is in the historic preservation plan.
You know, a suggestion for what that motion would look like, so when we get to that, we can just go through that smoothly. Motion
I
is
would
to,
say motion to place the Flamingo Lounge on the local historic register.
And award them a plaque.
And then that goes on to council in form of resolution. That's what we did last time with the Box, Standard Oil, and the last one.
So we could just take that resolution and just rework it slightly for the Flamingo
Exactly.
Lounge.
we should probably reference it since the way that they wrote it too, we believe the Thorns building holds significance, so I think it's a place of Flamingo Lounge, parentheses, Thorns building,
Thorn.
Thorn building.
Formerly Thorn.
Yeah, that's a great point, which is the
Make sure we get the right
title of
building.
this,
I would-
in this instance. Is it
I think-
Thorns or Flamingo?
We should call
So-
it formerly Thorns Showcase Lounge, because that was the official name, and also what they have on their application.
So,
Didn't it used to be
Yep.
Flamingo Lounge? and then
No,
it
the
became
Flamingo
Thorn?
Lounge was another building.
Miss Stacy,
I would say for name of property, the historic name should be Gills Lounge. Other names for site number, there is no site number, but other names could be Thorns Showcase Lounge and Flamingo Lounge.
so
Because that
AKA
represents all three histories of that site.
Gills Lounge, also known as the Thorns Showcase Lounge and Flamingo Lounge, to be nominated, put on the Seward Register, and award a plaque, which will then go to City Council for resolution. All right. That was easy. You want to forget that, it was important. They've been very, very good, very persistent about making sure that we knew that they were very interested, so I appreciate that very much.
Done good.
All right, anything else on that subject?
No.
All right, again, thank you. Welcome, everyone. I did hear from Commissioner Mashlin that he would be about 30 minutes late, so he should be joining us a little bit. I have not heard from our other commissioner. Has anyone heard from Commissioner Lemaster at all?
I've not.
All right, with your permission, moving on to the CLG grant application. So a little background on CLG grant. The last CLG grant that we successfully did and executed was the historic walking tour. We subsequently, a year ago, with the support of our city manager and our administration, put forth a grant to get more walking tour signs to extend the walking tour, and that was not accepted at the time. In my conversations with Maria Lewis and with the folks at the State Historic Preservation Office, they said that they had so many applications at the time that our application was not as competitive as some of the other ones. They also mentioned that there were actually a lot of projects that had to do with signage and so on, so ours wasn't really distinct. We like to think that we may have done such a good job that others tried to do the same. I don't know if that's the case or not, but at any rate,
We'll take credit.
we'll take credit. So, not officially, because I could be wrong, right? But at any rate, so we started looking at other things that we could potentially consider to do a CLG grant, which the grant application is due in late February. I did have an informal conversation with Maria Lewis, who handles the CLG grants at the State Historic Preservation Office, and I mentioned to her that we had been having some discussion about taking the Hoban Park fencing and repairing it and reinstalling it to look original as it did, and then perhaps doing some park enhancements too, maybe around, for example, putting up some type of fencing or protection around where the lilacs or lilac cuttings will go back at some point, because it seems like they have not fared well just being put out there with no
been
protection
trampled.
whatsoever. Yeah, they've been trampled, exactly. So that's what we're proposing and looking at. I'll talk in a minute about the CLG priorities and how that works, but I want to talk about the project as a whole. So the fencing, we have known for a long time. I'm guessing all the way back to when you guys did the historic plan, the original way back when, what, 17? Is that when that was?
Yeah.
Long time, we've known that this fencing existed somewhere. Where the fencing does exist, Parks and Rec has it, and thinks that they have all of it or most of it. I spoke to Melanie, the director, and she actually sent me pictures of it as well as the length of how much that they have. They actually went as far as to take a piece of that fencing, start to strip it down, repaint it, kind of fix it up, and they had the willingness to do that. But if you take a look at it, and I don't have the pictures today, but I can certainly forward those for future consideration, but the fencing is not in great shape, right? Because it was originally up with spikes that went into the concrete, little concrete
here's a
wall that's over
picture.
there. Here's
There's a
one, we do have
picture.
one picture.
Of original Hoban Park.
So it was put into the concrete, and then obviously when they removed it, the only option that they had to remove that fencing was just to cut it, right? So it has to be welded. I'm sure that when they took it out, they probably somehow pulled it out, so it has to be straightened. I have no idea of what the condition of the paint is, other than the fact that it would have to be redone. I have no idea what that paint is or what the material is, so it's going to take a professional contractor. So I can certainly call and get some bids on what that would cost, just kind of an estimate. But we would need to put together a budget and a general estimate of what we think it would cost to take all that fencing, strip it down, straighten it, weld it, repaint it, protect it, and reinstall it. And that's a big project. So I did speak to Parks Rec and I said, I really appreciate so much what you're willing to do, but I have a feeling this is going to end up being beyond what you're able to do with the equipment that you have to do it properly. Plus, if it's a historic project or something that we want to last for the next 50 or 100 years, we want to do that appropriately. So I think it would be amazing if we had that fencing back up. That would be a really cool thing. And then we could work on getting the signage at a later time. We do want to do the signage. We have several people backed up, right, that are wanting to get on the walking tour, that are very interested. But these grants typically come out at least once a year, sometimes twice.
Okay.
So usually once, I think, for
And there
CLG.
was the fountain.
Yes.
And they
Well,
were
yeah, we have
fenced
10
all the
people
way
that we
around.
had tried to,
And so this
that
we
we
still
had
have.
rated
Still have.
as at the top of the list to get the walking tour signs if we could get the grant money, which we did not. So we already have a list of 10 people that we have approved to get the signs. But in listening to what you're saying, one thought comes to mind is back in the day, were they using lead paint? So if you're gonna take that paint off and repaint, if it's got
We're not
lead
gonna do
paint,
it.
it's got to, whoever, something to consider, because our contractor would need to deal with that. And then the other thing that came up just in the beginning of this meeting was Ally was saying that she thinks a piece of that fencing happens to be in a display at the museum. So if we are missing a piece, we know where at least one piece is.
You can.
Hopefully, that's the only one
It
missing.
says in red that this is due next Friday, so I'm just being
Yeah, I know.
mindful.
I
Okay.
actually thought it was later in February. I didn't realize it till just
Okay,
now,
so I
but
just wanted
we
to-
have a template. I could even work on it some tomorrow, but we have a template of the original one, which I think we can get put together relatively. But what we're going to do tonight, thank you for reminding me that.
No, no problem.
Okay, I pictured. What we're going to do tonight, hopefully, is actually fill out some of this stuff together, who can be responsible for what, and then Ms. Stacy and I can work on getting the application together. I am the one that needs to actually do that, or with you guys, I need to put the application together. She can certainly review it for accuracy and add context, but just per the way it's set up, we as commissioners are the ones that have to put it together. We do have some preemptive kind of agreement. I know the city manager signed off on the last one, and I think she'll be very supportive. The other piece we'll need to discuss tonight is we really do need to have some letters of support, so that'll be one of the things that we'll talk about. That was the other thing that they mentioned to us as well too, is that good letters of support. That's what we did on the first grant, and really good, strong letters of support would have helped a lot with this last grant that we did as well too. So I think it can be done by February 7th. And by the way, the whole impetus of doing these things is you got to get at least your original one in on time. After that, if we need to add things to it, we can. So I think it's doable. All right, so if you take a look at this one pager, the proposed fiscal year 2000, this is an older one, 2023 CLG priorities, but still kind of the same things. There's 5 items here, and there's 2 that I think that we probably fall under. And that's number 1, projects that increase public awareness of historic preservation and establish partnerships. I don't know about the part here with the local tribes, but to strengthen the local historic preservation program, I believe that improving Hoban Park and bringing attention to it. I also think that although this is not a signage project, I believe that part of that grant should also include signage to explain the history of the fencing and so on. We have lots of pictures of the original fencing.
There is one sign already there at Open Park that talks about the whole history, not just about the fencing, so then,
We could do
we
something.
need another sign to go with that.
I don't know if there's already one there, possibly not. I can take a look at that maybe
It's an
tomorrow.
older sign the city put out.
So it says to strengthen the historic preservation program, projects that result in nominations for new properties to the National Register of Historic Places. By the way, Hoban Park is on the National Register of Historic Places. So they already verified that, which was also one of the criteria for doing the CLG grant. And Maria Lewis checked it and verified that in fact it is on the National Register.
Is there a plaque on there somewhere?
That's a
In
great
Hoban
question.
Park? National Historic Plaque?
I don't remember.
I don't remember seeing one either.
I-
So that may be something we want to pursue, make sure if we've got one somewhere. I'd
Yeah.
imagine if it's on the register, a plaque was received.
And if not, we can literally buy one, because if you're on the register and you're legit, you can just buy one, you can
Okay,
order one.
then we can buy one.
So that might
Put
be
that
part
in
of our
the grant,
project.
yeah.
That'd be part of our grant, which is great. So it is eligible from that standpoint. It recognizes places, this is not Alaska Native underrepresented communities, is not on that part, but nevertheless, I think that the other parts of this being on the National Register will qualify. And then number 5, there's projects that encourage historic preservation at local level by supporting heritage and cultural tourism. I believe this is all part of our walking tour. I believe that having the fencing and the explanation of it and/or getting the lilac situation going again too would be
The thing that
important.
I say about Hoban Park is that Hoban Park is right there on the bay, it's right there by the Sea Life Center. People walk through it and they walk by it, and it's not in great shape. It'd be really nice for it to become the feature that it was originally planned to be. Harry Hoban put that in for the president, when the president visited. That's why it's called Hoban Park. He paid for it, I think he did.
Couldn't it also fall in number 2, projects that address the rehabilitation of historic properties?
It could.
Because we have continued to try to fix that up or rehab it, to put native vegetation in, putting.
Put the
historic
original
fence back.
vegetation, yeah, you tracked down a bunch of historic lilacs. We did try to put those in where they were originally
And
at.
this is the historic fence, it's
Mm-hmm.
the original, so I think that we could meet number 2 also.
Awesome. Number 3, I don't think so. Projects, update plans, review ordinances. That's more for doing things like the historic preservation plan. Number 4, projects that address the survey and evaluation of properties, archaeological projects, so on. I don't think it's that one. But number 5, just say projects encourage historic preservation at the local level by supporting heritage and cultural tourism programs and other preservation efforts that use historic properties to stimulate economic incentives. So my thought is people are going to the Sea Life Center, people are walking around at the waterfront, they're seeing Hoban Park and they're understanding our
And
history.
Hoban Park was kind of set there adjacent to the depot. All of
That's right.
that was part of it. I think the president addressed Seward from the depot.
I think they actually, didn't they put that park in originally because the president?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but President
gonna
Harding was
visit?
coming.
Yeah.
So that's all part of that. I mean, it is quite a, and, you know, to me, it's got the primo position on the waterfront. I mean, really, downtown, it's got a primo position.
And we've got some good pictures that you pulled from our VHS, right? Of way back when.
Yes, I had some pictures that I had researched, that I got from them. And then I went and took some pictures of what it looks like now to try to see
That's great.
how things lined up.
Number 6 does not apply, but it says grant applications need to clearly associate the proposed project with the priorities, so we could say 1, 2, and 5 and take elements of those. Any thoughts or discussion on how we are approaching the grant? And thoughts in general about Hoban Park as being the thing to go for?
I think it's a good idea. And like I say, that part is a primo property right there on the bay. It gets a lot of people in it, tourism-wise, so I think it's time to maybe give it a little attention.
Anyone else?
Well, I'm guessing that the city would be happy if we could get a grant to do that fixing up of the fence, and then we could use their help to, as they offer to put it back up, and, you know, have them.
See what we can get.
Yeah, I'm sure they'd rather have somebody else do that work of the fence.
And
We have-
to be clear, what we would end up doing would be to facilitate that fence, making it to a contractor. The contractor would do all the work, would do all the installation and so on.
Exactly.
If there was a sign involved, or if there was a National Register sign that needed to be procured, any of that, we would help with that. We're going to help with the application. We would help with establishing some of the history, promoting it. I don't know if it ends up on the walking tour. I don't know if we end up doing some type of a flyer or something that's inside the museum or inside the Sea Life Center to explain. I don't know, but the work is primarily being done by a contractor.
Okay, so you're thinking installation also they would do? The
All of it.
contractor? Okay.
We're facilitating that work getting done and making sure that it gets completed in time. Thoughts? Don't want to get too excited.
I like it.
I like it.
It will take a little bit of work on everybody's part, so does it sound reasonable?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then, I need your help. Let's fill out some of these things, and then I can start the application, and then you get to Miss Stacy, and we can put some more historical context. What are we going to call it? This is a democracy tonight, so it's the CLG name. What are we going to call this particular project? I need some ideas for a title, because that's what it'll forever be called.
Holden Park renovation, Holden Park
Rehabilitation
rehabilitation, there's the word.
Goes along with number 2.
project, 2025 to 2026. Yeah, and this project needs to be done by September 6, 2026. For your timeline purposes.
Thing? Okay.
And for the 60/40, I mean, obviously matching grant and stuff, are we getting matching funds?
So the way that it would work, first of all, let's talk, I have no idea on the budget right now until I do a little digging into it, but I can tell you that I'm going to assume that for all the work, for all the restoration and everything else, it's probably a good $25,000 project.
Right, okay.
So what will happen is 60% of it would be paid for by the grant, 40% of it would be paid for by the city. However, a big part of that is volunteer hours. So if we do research, if we help haul stuff out or haul stuff in, the time that you spend, visits that we make, if we do tours, if we do any of those kind of things, all those things count at an average of, I think the volunteer hours are somewhere between $37 and $38 per hour right now. And that's really what happened on the last project. So if we put in 200, 300, 400, 500 hours worth, it's going to take care of most of our share. I would think that there would be very little cost to the city. However, on that budget, we'll put together a preliminary budget, and then I've already spoken to Maria, and she suggested that once we put a preliminary budget together, we put it before her, before we even put the application in, and she'll take a look at it and massage that and make sure that we know what we're doing. But let's just say that we're talking 20, let's just say 30,000, because it's an easier number. If we're talking $30,000, you'd have federal be 18,000, we'd have to come up with 12,000, and then you take 12,000, that's like 400 volunteer hours. So I don't know what that number looks like, but we're going to end up putting some hours into getting this project done. So it can be anything. It could be like somebody saying, I'll take my pickup truck to go pick up all that fencing and bring it to either down the road, if there's somebody here I'm thinking of that's a local contractor, or if it's got to be taken to Kenai or Anchorage or somewhere and then picked up, and
Well, with the
all that
last,
stuff counts.
with the last project, the sign project, we had thousands of hours.
Yes.
This one hopefully will be a little simpler.
I think
Yeah,
it'll
this
be
will be a
simpler.
lot, I mean, but I just say it's a pretty easy match.
Right.
We could include, putting the lilacs in there.
Oh, yeah.
Include labor and partnership opportunities like we did before to get the old vegetation
Yeah,
out.
and that, we did a good job last time. So we
And then the
get
support
that.
letters, you would start with possibly like the Sea Life Center and some
Yeah,
of
let's
the
talk
local
about that.
businesses.
I was gonna say the pioneers would probably.
Let's talk about that, about letters of support. I think it comes later in the thing, but since we're on the subject. Pioneers, I'm thinking Rotary would be in support in theory.
RBHS.
RBHS. And who else did you say?
I would
Laura?
say the Sea Life
Center.
Sea Life
Yeah.
Center?
I mean, even Carrie, when she has a business there, at Primrose
Carrie and
Provision.
Judy.
Yeah,
What business is that?
Judy's,
Primrose Provisions.
yeah.
Okay.
Carrie, that, it
And
enhances
Judy's
around
Cafe.
her area. Well, I guess they've sold now, right?
Yeah, but you could still find out, I'm sure Judy would put in.
I mean, Judy would still,
Yeah.
yeah, she,
Oh, we could, I would imagine maybe Doug Capra from the Historical Significance would be willing to put a
He's
word in.
traveling, I saw him at the grocery store today,
could
they're
probably
going
email
out
him.
of
How
town.
about some of the historical business like, Brown and Hawkins? They can look right over there at that, and it's kind of like, how did you draw people?
I can talk to Iris.
history?
Okay.
I'd be happy to call
I mean,
her.
would, like even Urbox or anybody
Dorothy?
like that, yeah. Who has seen,
The changes.
over years and changes and.
What about members of commission that have lived here for a long time?
Are we talking you,
Yeah,
Donna?
if you write it for us.
I'll help you write it, I sure will. You know I would.
All right, awesome. So the type of CLG grant that it is, we talked about, it's not a survey, it's not an inventory, it's not a National Register nomination, it's not HP planning, it would be a development, I think is what they call
What's the
it.
additional requirement on Facebook?
Let's look. development projects, property listed in National Register of Historic Places, it is. Section 106 review is just whether you'd be harming anything by doing the work you're doing. We're not harming, we're actually improving. Environmental screening worksheet, I don't know what that would look like, but I don't know how that would affect the fence. Owner's consent to work on the property, that's a really good question. That is all owned by the city, correct? So
Park is, yeah, the park section.
the park is. Public notice of potential project, we could do that. Affected, nobody's affected. Provide synopsis and statement of willingness to execute a covenant, and that's a covenant to maintain what you do. So there you go.
What's this public preservation education? I wonder if it could be
It could possibly be, because it's preserving an asset for education, so I think it probably could. I can clarify that with Maria.
Lewis?
Pre-development is when you need to do a bunch of work to establish the work that you're going to do. So if like you have a house and it needs foundation work, it's that, and you're not ready to do the repair work or the
Until you do the
rehabilitation work, so
foundation.
you got to do a pre-development and all that. I don't believe that's what it is. You think we're on track, probably?
It's a project.
Public preservation and development, okay. The budget we'll figure out, again, I'll get some bids on that, but I just want everybody to know that's not a $3,000 buy some paint kind of project. It's gonna be a more significant project. The grant manager must be somebody to be willing to be over on. It does have to be a commissioner, right? Cannot be administration, is that correct?
Correct.
So that'll be me. Mailing address, I've done it before as a grant manager on the last one. Preservation Commission Chair, at least for this minute, happens to be me. That could change with an overthrow tonight, just saying. And then telephone CLG contact is actually you, is that not right? Hello, Commissioner Marston, how are you? Good. And then we have the signature of authorized local government official. Would that be you or would that be city manager? Probably. We're going through the CLG application, which for Hoban Park is what we're talking about now. There's a second page on here, it's just something that's signed explaining that it's a 60/40 matching grant administered by the state of Alaska. If we're awarded a grant, we know it's our responsibility to comply with all pertinent state and federal regulations. If the project's awarded, I understand project records are subject to audit. I understand no grant exists until the state historic preservation signs. This is important. That means if we start getting all excited, we're like, we're gonna get this thing, and they're like, we think we're gonna give you this thing, don't start any work until then, even the research, because none of those hours count until after the grant is awarded. So if we go do 100 hours of research and a bunch of stuff, none of that stuff is gonna count towards later. So it's
Towards the
important that we
match.
wait until they execute on that date, and then all that stuff can happen. So, I understand until no grant. All right. Any funds expended before the performance period on fully executed grant agreement may not be reimbursed. What I will ask her is I will say, if I spend a certain amount of time on trying to get contractors, can that count for later or not? If not, then we'll just put the best budget that we can together and revise the budget as we need to.
As needed.
I understand it's a reimbursable grant program. It's my responsibility to front costs, so that is something that's why the reason is this would not be signed by me. This would actually be signed by the city manager, and that's why it's important for them to understand that if we make a purchase, and let's just say that we have to put $5,000 or $10,000 up front for the repair of the fencing, that would have to come from the city first, and the city would be reimbursed later. So they don't give you the money up front. That's important to know. CLG grant application, so the project description we'll work on. I just want to highlight a couple of the things that we talked about. So it's the rehabilitation of original Hoban Park fencing. And I can put to include painting and straightening, welding, and installation. I am not a contractor, so I do not know if it requires or it might require additional cement work to that little wall that's there. If they would have to do any repair work before they could actually install, so we'll have to take a
What
look
kind of shape
at
the
that.
cement wall is
Kind of
in?
shape the cement walls in. This is very original as well too.
Maybe
So
we should just put repair if needed of cement foundation.
Those would be the specs to give to the contractor.
And then the other piece of that would be, this is the time, if we're gonna talk about the Holden Park and friends, do we want to do something, do we want to create some space to protect the plants that we're gonna put back in there? And are we talking about just the lilacs, or I know we've talked about historic roses, do we want to create some type of additional similar fencing or something to protect and/or purchase any of those items?
It seems like we could, nothing has to be permanent, but maybe we could put planting and protection of lilacs and roses to go with records of historical vegetation, and just leave it at that, because anything you put up for protection, I don't think it has to be permanent.
Yeah, just until they get large enough to not get run over, mowed over.
And then also we said appropriate, or possibly appropriate signage, because again, we're gonna do all this work and get this pretty little fencing put up, so painting as well. Pretty little fencing put up, and then is anyone gonna notice what it is unless we have some signage or something explaining the history of it? And then as a park, you said there's a sign that's there now?
There's like, all the city historic signs are along the waterfront path, it's one of those. It's a sign that talks about history.
Is it's total aside, but is the fountain working now? I've seen it displayed, but is it working now?
I don't think so. I've never seen that run.
I've seen it run.
It hasn't run for a couple of years now. It running? I have seen it running.
I mean,
So as
I
part
hope-
of a one-shot deal, is this just the restoration of the fencing, or is it restoration of the park, including the fencing and/or lilacs and/or looking at that?
I'm going to suggest you have 1 week to get this.
I'm just asking. This
So
is
I would say
Say
keep it
fence.
small.
fence.
Don't worry about the fountain, make that separate.
So you want plant,
I
that
feel
you
like
want,
it'd be bigger.
Well, and then are there volunteer hours with planting and maintaining and
Yes.
things of
Yeah.
this sort? So, I mean, I would also start with, hey, we are volunteering ongoing.
Then you have to haul the water there.
There's urns there that
Does
get planted
not
every
the
summer.
City Park Service maintain plantings
They are-
in the
There's-
parks?
They're supposed to be taking that on now. I don't know if they did do it this year or not. In the past, it was all us, including hauling water by hand over there.
There's no,
Is Hoban Park not a city park?
It is, but there's no water there. You didn't.
They have these little buggies with great big tanks on them that they go around and
I'm not quite sure why. In the past. It's happening.
I mean, that can be investigated and figure out what the long-term,
You can include that in your application for your project description. Like, this is a first step for us to continue on rebuilding Hoven Park. Our next aims over a course of 10 years is to get the fountain working, to establish a management plan of your historic vegetation, etc. That's a good closer for your narrative.
that this is only step one of many steps.
Yes.
We don't have to solve all the issues in this grant.
No.
We have 1 week.
Yeah, I think keeping it smaller is definitely a thing.
We have 1 week.
all right, so B, list any previous HPF grants. I'm gonna say two things about that. One, there was the historic walking tour, but previous to that, one of the grants was the historic preservation plan. I'm pretty sure there was a grant that was written for that to
I think
assist
there
with that.
was, yeah, for a writer, something of that sort too, so. Yeah, we'd have to look it up.
And if I look back at last application that I worked on, that Sue and I worked on way back when, I believe that I had listed already, I went in and I listed all the plans, so I'll
We just
pull that
need-
right from the
yeah,
plan.
Yeah.
We just need to look at what we
Got
already
it.
submitted and probably a lot of that information.
The-
A lot of the information will be.
Is already gonna be there
usable
from the
Yeah,
last
it should
plan.
be, yeah.
Briefly describe the relationship as project to past, present, or future preservation work,
Well, you got the future already.
okay?
We know what we want to do.
So the past, we said, so I need a little bit of research for what we think happened, which was that the park was built for the president's
President
visit,
Right.
and that it had
Pretty
something to
sure-
do with the railroad depot, et
You
cetera.
can
That's probably
copy
all of
and
the sign down there.
Yeah, you can look at the sign, also look at the National Register nomination.
Yes.
They like a copy and paste from that, usually.
And you want to say from the historic registry.
Yeah, you can use that as a,
Yeah, I think
definitely
that
include in your bibliography.
highlights
Yeah,
that you're on the National Historic Register.
it's almost like copy and paste of the bibliography to include and then continue further for present and future.
We did do some work where we partnered with the Rotary Club and we went down and we removed non-native vegetation, invasive species, and tried to plant historic lilac shoots already so we've done some work to try to rehabilitate some of like the historic vegetation that was at the park. We didn't have a grant for that. We
But
just
that's
did.
great. That'd be a good thing for Rotary to mention in their letter as well, too.
Hey, Tanvi, so how does the project relate to, so what are the CLG grant priorities for this fiscal year, do you know, or?
Well, that's what, I'd have to go back and look, and I can address that. They're gonna probably be pretty close to 23, but I can tell you that, like I said, I had to.
That's the one that Maria sent to
It's the one
both you
she
and
sent.
I.
Yeah, that's true. This is the one that she
Okay.
sent. But I had a discussion with her, and I told her about the project, and she thought it was right on.
Okay.
So, but I will list that. I'll make sure that these are the most recent.
It seems to me, because it was a while ago, so I don't remember, but I'd gone through like all the old city minutes and stuff, looking about stuff that was done at Hoban Park in the past, because we talked about this fencing a couple years ago, and it seemed to me that this commission, probably before your time or me, but I think there was work where we received grants and actually did work on that fountain and did some other stuff out there. So I think we had previous grants and we actually did some work out there.
Yeah, I was around 2014 to 17, so.
So, yeah. And that's a long time.
I've slept since then.
It seems to me, I can't remember who was the chairperson.
Minnesota?
Linda Lasorda?
No,
Lesotho?
it was,
Yeah, Linda Lozada was the chair.
it was before her.
Okay.
The guy that has Oddfellows building, Tom Swan.
Swan.
I think he was the
Okay.
chairperson.
Yeah.
Okay, so number B, thank you. How does the project relate to goals and objectives of State Historic Preservation Plan? I will just pull that and figure out where that is, but I'm sure that it relates. Number C, describe how the project meets an identified historic preservation priority of your community. Do we happen to have, I don't have them next to me, but the responsibilities of the commission that we can specifically pull from? And as well, because there's some parts on there that address exactly what we're supposed to do. They're integrated into our calendar and so on, but if you happen to have that, I think it's actually on the site too.
I'm looking at city code right now. I'll have that for you in just a minute.
Thank you very much.
I think there's also a question where you just need to select which numbers, you have to select which priorities of your historic preservation plan too. So not the state's historic preservation plan, but also yours.
Chair LeBrecq, were you asking about the powers and duties of the
Yes.
commission? Would you like me to just read you the section?
Please.
Okay. This is from City Code 2.30.425, Powers and Duties. It shall be the responsibility of the Historic Preservation Commission to, 1, develop a local historic plan that will include provisions for identification, protection, and interpretation of the area's significant resources. Such a plan is to be compatible with the Alaska Historic Preservation Plan and to produce information compatible with and for the Alaska Heritage Resources Survey. 2, survey and inventory community historic, architectural, and archaeological resources within the community. 3, review and comment to the State Historic Preservation Officer on all proposed National Register nominations and for properties within the community area. 4, act in an advisory role to other officials and departments of local government regarding the identification and protection of local historic and archaeological resources. 5, Work toward the continuing education of citizens regarding local historic preservation and community history. 6, support the enforcement of the Alaska Historic Preservation Act, Alaska Statute 41.35. 7, review local projects and recommendations about the effect on properties identified in the local historic preservation inventory. And then section B, this is the last item. The commission shall have no authority to solicit, expend, or commit city funds without first obtaining approval by and any necessary appropriations from the city council.
Really important part. So all this will go to this, will need to go. Now, here was a point that we came up with last time, was that we can actually write a nomination, we can submit the nomination, and until any kind of funds are committed, we don't have to have it go before city council. So the city manager needs to look at our application before the 7th and send that in, but last time they came up.
Application, not nomination.
The application. The application can go in just like it is. There's no problem until a point where we're about to receive funds, and at that point, no funds can be accepted unless city council agrees to it. But we are allowed to put that in. I did clarify that with our city manager at the time, that we could put an application in. So that part shouldn't be a problem. So if I looked at those, I'm going to reread them all, but numbers 1, 4, 5, and 7, basically a lot of identification, preservation, and working with the city. Working with the city is a CLG grant. That's specifically what we're doing. So I believe, unless anyone believes differently, that this is an appropriate project to move forward with. So identify that. Number 3, project personnel, who will be working as project manager. PM's resume showing past experiences. We do at least have past experience of working on the walking tour as well too. They will also want to know, let's see, HPF projects, we can talk about that. Okay. Local government personnel who act as grants manager for the project.
That will be our accounting department.
I like how quickly you came up with that.
You don't want me with money? No way! No way!
Describe the Historic Preservation Commission's role in the project. We can certainly talk about that, but one will be like getting letters of support. It'll be research, pictures, etc., solicitation of bids, monitoring a project to execution.
Maybe doing some more with vegetation.
Yep, working with vegetation, tracking hours, and all, because there's sheets, so what ends up happening is volunteer sheets, which get sent to you guys every month. This is like, what have you done for volunteering? Then that all gets submitted through, I think Miss Stacy, through you originally. So we'll have to track hours, we'll have to get bids, we're going to work on the vegetation, monitor the project, solicitation bids, research, picks, etc., letter of support.
Developing sign narratives, if we do something like that.
Writing a grant, develop signage. And also will be promotion of the project to the community and working seamlessly with the city. Volunteer personnel and tasks. Yes?
Does there not also need to be a role in reporting back to the...
There does need to be a role in reporting, which I think we would work on that together. Ms. Stacy, is that correct? Okay. Identify volunteer personnel and their tasks. Unfortunately, I've come up with that today. Thoughts from last time. We had research, we had bids, ordering. What else went into volunteer hours? Installation. We don't have that so much this time. I'll have to think about that. But I'm assuming that everybody's willing to help in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'll ask you specifically before I put your name down.
Yeah, I think maybe you can quickly draw up a letter. It's kind of like a letter of support, but more like a letter of committing to do volunteer hours signed by the commission. That could be a possibility.
That would be great. Is that something that we can circulate? Because I know I can't circulate it to 3 people or whatever, so is that something that you could circulate, or who would circulate that?
You're welcome to send it to the clerk and we can distribute it, blind carbon copy.
That everybody signs and returns.
Blind carbon copy, sign and return. Identifying any additional contractors, that's something that I will work on this week. And then the work plan, again, I won't know that till I sit with the contractors, but I can come up with something specific, but it's going to definitely have to do with we have to write the grant. We need to define the scope of the work, obtain estimates. The manufacturing and so on has got to happen, or manufacturing, repair, rehabilitation, and then installation. And I just have to come up with a kind of a tentative, loose date that happens between now and September 6th of 2026. And it would start with the time period. I will ask what the time period is that will start, but I would imagine it would not be until sometime in I'm guessing even April or May or later. It takes them a while to come to a determination. I don't see on here where it says when the project will start.
When the project will be.
Describing the geographic area encompassed by the proposed project. That's probably pretty easy to get with the address. Any planning studies or condition assessments, design drawings. You don't have publications, but we'll definitely be able to put photos of current and past. And then I don't know what other information we might have we could probably obtain from RBHS on the significance. The park, as well as the signage that's down there, which we agreed would be a great way to get information. Work schedule, again, showing months, expected activities and benchmarks. Work on that.
That's probably with the contract
Yeah.
as well.
The relevant information might be like the information that is on the National Register.
Oh, yeah.
Or this-
Do we have copies of that, what was
You can just
submitted?
look it up. The
Yeah.
paperwork that goes with it.
Yeah,
That's
whatever
fine.
application was made, I don't know when that was made.
It's findable online.
Yeah,
though, I
there you go.
think. Then there's the final product, publications, workshops, audiovisual materials, reports, websites, brochures, survey materials, etc. They'll be produced as part of the project. I would imagine that this would be something that would then be on the Historic Preservation website, the city's website, I would imagine. We also talked about, well, for another thing, but it could go in the city manager's newsletter once it gets done, I think. Are there other publications or other areas that it could be? I would imagine we could do some type of a flyer or something that would go to the chamber. I don't think that would be extraordinarily difficult. And at some point, yeah, Facebook page.
Yeah, it talks
Social.
about interpretive signs, so,
You
If
can
we're
have
gonna-
an exhibit that shows up in the museum that mirrors the history of Holbrook Park.
there you go. And they already have a
It's like
piece
you
of
have the
fence.
curator right
You
here.
already got the fence.
Yeah, we already have the fence.
You already have the fence.
We can have that as the entryway because there's going to be a missing piece.
And it's on the walking tour?
And it's on the walking tour. All right. And then we would end up doing a ribbon cutting open house too.
You can go through the radio, isn't there a radio station? We could probably put something on there.
Awesomeness, additional information, this is what I need, letters of commitment and support. So if I can get a commitment from who's going to get these letters, pioneers, who can help me with that?
Donna and I can.
What about Rotary?
I can do that.
All right.
I can do Sea Life.
Sea Life, thank you very much.
I'm gonna throw in another one, City of Seward Parks and Rec. Just saying that they'll also assist.
Yeah.
And that they're really appreciative of us doing this.
Is it, I mean, I can reach out to her, or she's already sent me all
I
the
can
pictures.
call her
Or you
tomorrow.
can? Can you call? That'd be great.
Yeah.
All right,
Maybe a
RBHS,
person at the meeting on Thursday.
who can reach out to RBHS?
I can.
Okay.
Or Sue McClure is the pres, so,
Should I do a basic letter that just says, kind of summarizing what we talked about
Yeah.
tonight to give to you guys?
that would be great, because I could pass that along to Sue. I'm sure she'd be fine.
Primrose provisions.
I can reach out to Carrie too.
Q?
And probably include a deadline, just for them.
Like tomorrow.
I would probably suggest, like, next Wednesday.
Yeah, by Wednesday, right.
Yeah.
Sounds like I'll be working on this weekend. Then Zudi's Cafe.
I don't know if she's around right
I don't
now.
know.
That's the
She's
thing.
usually in Hawaii.
Yeah, right.
Goes to
that's
visit
the
her
only
sister.
problem.
Question mark.
Yeah, I don't
Right.
think they've been open.
Pioneers won't be able to meet till Thursday, so.
I think it's worth reaching
We
out
can
to
still
Doug Capra.
get a
I
letter.
have his email. I don't know him well. Is there somebody who knows Doug better than I do?
I saw him at the grocery store. They're planning to leave state, so I don't
can
know when
email
that
him.
is.
I can email him.
I saw him and Cindy.
Brown and Hawkins.
I can talk to Iris.
Okay.
She'll probably give it to Reese. Maybe I should talk to Reese. She's a
City
She's
manager
in
for
Mexico.
support. I suppose I could do that. Airbox. You can reach out to Dorothy.
I can reach out to Dorothy, that's fine.
What I'll do is Ally, is I'll put a basic letter together, send it to you, and you tell me what you think about it. And then if we do put a basic letter together, we can put it on City of Seward letterhead, so as a commission, can we not?
Yeah, if the commission approves the letter, then you can write a letter as the commission.
I have to write that letter real quick.
Are we gonna give them somewhat of a helpful letter for them to make it easy on them?
That's what I was thinking about.
Okay, great.
That's what he's.
But that doesn't necessarily need to be approved. We need a letter that describes the project, that's a solicitation that then goes out on, it's not a solicitation because we're not soliciting funds, we're not doing that. But it's a solicitation for a letter of support. If we want that to go on letterhead, we have to have that letter talked about tonight, is that correct?
Yes.
Or can you send it out by BCC and get a vote?
No, I can't operate that way, unfortunately.
I think it would be nice if we had some kind of a template letter, because if we're gonna ask people for letters to support, the easiest way to get that is go, here's an example, and then let them tweak it. And if we're all on the same page, same thing, it certainly makes it easier. Then we're all writing up these letters for people, or hoping that they will be able to quickly come up with something for us, so.
So we have two options. Either it doesn't go on letterhead and it's just a letter from us, or two, we take a break between now and 7 and a letter is produced for consideration for tonight.
I don't think it needs to be officially on letterhead. Quite frankly, this is a letter of support from RBHS. This is a letter of
Okay.
support
They
from
should
the
have their
pioneers.
letterhead.
We can give them a template.
Yeah,
I think,
exactly.
I agree with the
Something
template, but it doesn't have to be anything officially voted. It's
Cool.
just,
Right.
here's a way to do it. It's just easier to get it back, but, you
It
know,
makes things much easier.
it's just making it easier, and then they can write whatever they want. They can put it in the trash and not use it at all. That's their option as well.
Attaching other relevant information, thank you for that, such as links to pertinent websites and copies of photographs. That we're going to do, that's easy, we've already got the photographs. Pertinent websites, I don't know if there's anything on our BHS or on our website. Would you mind taking a look for me real quick? On our website, we have a listing of all the historic properties. Can you see if Holden Park is on there and if there's any link to that or any information, please? Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And then the budget, let's come up with federal requests are $50,000 for development projects, $25,000 for other project categories. I have a feeling we're going to end up finding the other project categories and doing $25,000, which I think is doable. Budget submittal, again, we'll come up with the best we can once we have some bids, and we'll run that through as SHPO to make sure that we're doing that correctly. The budget narrative, it talks about personal services, contractual services, supplies, materials, travel, and so on. That's just part of the budget. And again, that's going to depend, is it a company that we can find in Seward, which would be preferable? Or is it going to be a company that would be somewhere else, which would include any travel or additional costs? We won't know that until we can get the bids. And again, we can do all this very preliminary. Contractual service, same thing, won't know that until they get a contractor, supplies, materials, or travel. These are all part of the budget. And then going to the, what I think is the next to last page, is we'll have a checklist. Do we maintain current certification or CLG? Yes, we are CLG. Will we have signed a dated application? I certainly hope so. Sign the form with willingness to comply, which we will. Provide information on each page, which we will. Public outreach component, we have identified public outreach. Maps location, showing location project. Can you help me with that, Ms. Stacy? Okay. Attach photographs, which we'll do. Character survey, letters of support, we're going to do. Attaching a resolution supporting a proposal. So is that something we need to do at the meeting then? Or not? Resolution supporting this proposal. Oh, to the, yeah. It says you have to attach a resolution supporting this proposal or indicate you've requested one prior to the Alaska Historical Commission meeting, so when they recommend awards. So,
Chair Lebrecht, I'm at a slight disadvantage. I don't have the packet that you're looking at.
oh,
The CLG, the checklist.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's the checklist.
it's on page 13. I apologize for that.
All right, thank you, Ms.
A
Stacy.
resolution supporting this proposal or indicate you've requested one prior.
It doesn't say that it's approved by your city council. It just has to be a resolution as the commission, I think.
Alaska Historic Commission, that's,
They're the ones that are going to vote on the projects.
yes. Attach the resolution supporting this proposal.
It just says you have to do it before they meet. So if they
yeah.
meet a month from now, all we need to do is have said that we've done
And I
one.
think they have this in here particularly for National Register nominations.
Okay.
Because with National Register nominations, you need to get a resolution passed by City Council before you would approach Alaska Historical Commission for
Got
the
it.
nomination. So I think that's in there mainly for NR nominations.
Awesome. That's it. We already looked at that development page, number 14. Are there any questions, last thoughts, comments, support, or we just scared the heck out of you? You said heck no, or you're saying heck yes? And we don't have to vote, so there's no heck no or heck yes, but are there any concerns or thoughts?
Just love when you
Suggestion.
whip that out.
Suggestion.
I think for contractors wise, we talk through Parks and Rec. Reach
Oh,
out
great
to them
idea.
tomorrow, because they probably already have a list of people that
Could do it.
could do it, both in town and not, and that would just be faster for us to try and find a quote.
And start
That's
from
something
scratch.
that you can do or I need to do?
Well, I can throw it in there, on our phone call tomorrow
Okay,
with her, because I think I said that I would do the
great.
support letter. I'll just kind of contact her, have her email you
Awesome.
her list, or if she knows of anybody. Because I know they
That would be
also
very
worked
helpful.
on, maybe it wasn't iron, but at some of the monuments along the waterfront pathway.
So they may already have a list.
I'm sure
Probably
they'll have
they
like
do.
cement people
Yes.
ready to go
Yeah,
if we don't already have one in the city. So, and keeping
She'll
it
know.
local would be good.
no, no.
Yeah.
I have one other piece. So reading, I didn't look at the front letter, which is actually on the back, but it's a letter written for November 6th. It came from Judith Bittner at the SHPO. And you'll note down there, towards the middle of the page, lower middle of the page.
Where are you
Looking at this on the very back of the CLG application, I'm sorry.
Up, there you go.
There's a letter, it's on the very back, and it says, priorities proposed by the Alaska Historical Commission during the June 2023 meeting remain valid. So you are absolutely correct in what was sent to us for 2023 is still valid. These are still their priorities. Refer the priorities when creating your CLG application package. So we have this. It does say the Office of History and Archaeology anticipates $100,000 should be available for award to eligible projects. The maximum federal share is $25,000. We're going to look for a $25,000 grant. That would make us one of maybe 3 or 4 that would get an actual grant. So we'll need to be competitive and get this done as fast as possible. Would you mind, Ms. Stacy, also mentioning to Ms. Sorensen just that this is coming, so we'll need to make sure we get her signature by that date before sending it off.
Yeah.
And we'll try to get that done well in time. Any other questions, thoughts, comments?
Oh, Chair LeBrecq, just to answer your previous question, the Seward Register of Historic Places has Hoban Park listed as 1998, a city council resolution. And it says Hoban Park built 1923, located at 401 Railway Avenue.
That was before its national nomination. Interesting.
Okay. Thank you very much. All of you just helped with the first step, which was working on the groundwork for this application. I appreciate that very much. I will get to work on this, Ms. Stacy. Thank you so much for offering to help edit and or get backup support and everything else and helping us stay on track. So,
I'm around next week, so I,
thank you very much. That is what I have, unless there's any other business. I think that that's it for a well-done work session today. Anything else? All right, I'll call this to a close. 6:44.